And I'm used to it saying recording in progress, but it looks like it. Okay, the recording has started.
Okay,
So
awesome.
Go ahead, Annika.
Thanks, William. Hello, welcome to the Somerville Job Creation and Retention Trust meeting of July 12th, 2023. My name is Annika Van Eaton, and I am a co-managing trustee of the Job Creation and Retention Trust. And I call this meeting to order at 6:09 p.m. On March 29th, 2023, Governor Healy signed into law a supplemental budget bill which extends the temporary provisions pertaining to the open meeting law to March 31st, 2025. This extension allows public bodies to continue holding meetings remotely without a quorum of the public body physically present at a meeting location and to provide adequate alternative access to remote meetings. This session is being recorded and will be a public record. I will now ask the board members to confirm they are in attendance in alphabetical order. Tom Bent.
Present.
Awesome. Vicki Coitz.
Present.
Silvana Dinka.
She frozen.
Oh. Silvana, you're a little glitchy, but I think I heard you and I see you.
It doesn't work, the sound.
Okay, I hear you now.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I couldn't unmute myself. Present, sorry.
No worries. Matt McLaughlin. Absent. Colleen Moran.
Present.
Rachel Ned Carney.
Present.
Annika Van Eaton, present. Rand Wilson. Okay, I don't see him in here yet. All right, so Rand is waiting in the lobby.
He is.
All righty. Hey, Rand.
Getting there. I'm trying.
I literally just read your name as I was calling attendance.
Oh.
Rand Wilson.
Here.
Here.
Can
Yes,
you?
I can.
I don't even know where I am yet, but I'm trying.
But we can hear you.
Okay,
we
I'm
have
here.
awesome. We have a quorum. We will now ask city staff to present a few house rules about using the technology. William, I will pass back over to you.
Thanks, Annika. As you all know, my name is William Blackmer, and I serve as staff to the Job Creation and Retention Trust. When an agenda item is being presented, presentation materials received ahead of time will be displayed on a shared screen. If and when we have public comment, we do have raised hand function here on Teams as well. So I will ask individuals who would like to speak to use the raise hand function, and you'll be unmuted one by one and given 2 minutes to speak. Trust members, all votes must be roll call votes with a motion and a second. We don't have any obligation votes on the agenda tonight, but for adjournment later on, the chair will call on each board member for a yes/no vote in alphabetical order. Questions or comments that are typed into the chat will be part of the public record in accordance with the open meeting law. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Annika to introduce the first agenda item.
You're on mute.
You're still muted, Annika.
Oh my goodness. Okay, thank you. Our first agenda item is to review and approve the June 7th meeting minutes. So William has shared the meeting minutes to you all in advance, and I think is now going to pull them up on our screen as well. Awesome. So as we sift through these,
I'd
please
like
let
to
me
make
know.
a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve.
Second.
Seconded. Okay. Then let us vote. Motion to approve the minutes. Tom Bent,
Yes.
Vicky,
Yes.
Silvana. Silvana, I'll come back to you. Colleen,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Annika, yes. Rand.
Yes,
Okay. Silvana, how are you doing? Your connection.
Looks muted and frozen.
Do you? Okay, well, this is a non-controversial bill here, or measure, so I think we can have an abstain. But Silvana, if you want to leave and try and come back in, if that helps you connect, that could be a good move.
Sometimes shutting off the video helps too.
Yeah. Good pro tip. Let's see. Lost where my chat is. Just gonna put it in the chat. Silvana, not sure if you can hear us. Okay.
William, my internet's kind of glitchy too, so I'm going to go out and come back in on a different internet connection. I'll be right back.
Sounds good. Thank you for letting us know.
Okay. So this measure passes, meeting minutes are approved. Our next item that's up is reviewing the received and estimated linkage fees for 2023. William has this up on the screen, and I will pass it back to you to give a summary of where we're at, William.
Thank you, Annika. So currently the trust has over $540,000 in unobligated funds. We have not received additional funds since the last meeting. We are expecting to receive a check shortly from the 15 McGrath project. That's the highlighted in yellow box on the spreadsheet. And in total, an additional 1.3 million may be arriving by the end of the year. So that would just be these remaining 3 projects that are listed on 2023. So that is the update or the status of the available funds.
Thanks, William. Does anyone have any questions?
Oh, Silvana's back.
Hey, Silvana, can you hear me okay?
Hi, I'm sorry. I had to re-enter because I couldn't unmute. It blocked it. It is blocked. I don't know. Sorry.
Weird. Well, I'm glad it worked there. It looks like Vicky is back in. Hey, Vicky. William had just shared that we have over $540,000 in unobligated funds. And I'll see if Vicky or Silvana, if you have any questions about the linkage fees.
No questions here. Thank you.
No question me either.
Okay. All right. Thanks, William, for going over that. Our next order of business is a regional view on training provider enrollments and workforce changes. So for the last couple of years that we've been doing this work, about once a year, we usually revisit what does the landscape look like here in our region to understand the labor market and economic forces that are happening. So I'm going to turn it over to William to share findings from some outreach and research that William's been doing. I welcome
Great.
folks' questions after you go through it. Thanks, William.
Definitely. Thanks, Annika. Okay, so this this topic came up in part because of the points that Rand made at the last month's meeting, toward the end of the meeting, about the impact of the trust. So this inspired me to, think about what's going on regionally with training enrollments and see what I could find out. So at the same time that this question came from Rand, the trust has been approving several no-cost extensions. Many of the no-cost extensions have been due to enrollment challenges that our providers are facing. So as we continue to press forward, launch new programs, fund valuable and meaningful initiatives, I wanted to dig into a couple key questions. So the first of these questions, and thank you to Annika and Colleen as well for helping brainstorm on these questions. So the first of these questions was trying to determine whether enrollment challenges in training and education programs were specific to Somerville, or whether this was being seen on a regional scale or more broadly. The second question I was looking into are, what are some of the causes of and potential solutions to the enrollment challenges that our providers are facing? So in order to learn, or once we do learn more about this, about these challenges and potential solutions, it should help the trust in having a greater impact. So I spoke with representatives from the MassHire Metro North Workforce Board. I've also spoken with career coaches and service providers that are funded by the JCRT, and have read articles to learn more about regional trends and what's being seen across the nation. So the first conclusion that I've come to is that these enrollment challenges do not appear to be specific to Somerville. We see that there are some training providers we're working with, namely Perscolis, that has mentioned that they are not as well known in Somerville as they are in Cambridge and Boston. But overall, in speaking with the Metro North Workforce Board, and this is included a bit in the PowerPoint that was shared with the materials, is that we're seeing a high saturation of free job training programs and job training funding streams in Massachusetts right now. So some of the different examples of this include the Commonwealth Corporation's Workforce Competitiveness Trust Fund, increased funding to career and technical education programs at the high school level, the ARPA Good Jobs Challenge, which has heavily invested in Boston and Greater Boston communities, and other American Rescue Plan Act funds as well. So unlike the JCRT funds that are focused on Somerville residents, most, if not all of these funds apply on a regional scale. And so this is to say that, the availability of funds means that there's competition in recruiting individuals that apply to certain programs. One finding from MassHire Metro North that shouldn't come as a surprise to us is that programs that are offering stipends are programs that are well established, and those that have successful track records of connecting participants to substantial starting wages and successful placement rates are seeing comparatively higher enrollment rates. But they were speaking about seeing really high balances of unspent funds in the training programs that are funded by WIOA at their career center, which is the Workforce Investment Opportunity Act. So in addition to this local saturation of the market, the job training market and funding sources in our region, there are other regional and national issues that are impacting the enrollment challenges that our providers are facing. Labor force participation rates have been in decline for more than 2 decades, and this was only worsened by the pandemic. Some of the causes to people opting out of the labor force in greater numbers are the rising costs of childcare and elder care, as well as the cost of living, which has led to a population decline in Massachusetts over the past several years. Additionally, and sorry if this is a little bit bleak, just kind of laying everything on the table, but additionally, wages have not kept pace with the inflation and with housing prices. And we've seen that there are declining enrollments in educational institutions. So I think that a lot of these factors are very complex in how they are addressed, but one factor that we have more control over is just increasing the levels of awareness of the free programs that the trust funds, as well as the fact that they include stipends. The last factor that Mass Hire Metro North pulled out of their analysis is that there has simultaneously been a surge in interest in entrepreneurial activities as a result of the pandemic. So we're seeing more people that are interested in self-employment. It's emerged as a compelling and viable choice for residents, especially as more people work remotely. And this is just to acknowledge that many training and educational programs, especially the ones we currently serve, are not typically catering toward those individuals that are interested in self-employment. Some of them, could be applicable if someone's looking to start become self-employed in the trades, but many of them require, or many of the programs cater toward individuals joining a company. So I just wanted to kind of share some of these findings that I'm seeing, and we have some space later in tonight's agenda to talk a little bit more about recruitment strategies, but just kind of wanted to contextualize where we are seeing things and some of the broad challenges that we're facing in the job training world.
Thanks, William, for sharing that multifaceted view on our region. I am interested to see if any board members have any thoughts or questions. Tom. Oh, you're on mute, Tom. I know, we all have to relearn it. We're not used to Teams.
One thing, Williams, I wanted to ask was on the programs, outside of Somerville that have been successful. Were you able to find out what they were actually offering for those? What particular type of education program? Where there's some that were, say, more popular than others? Just so is that part of the problem too? Are we, not hitting the right notes with what we're asking RFPs for. So I didn't know if any of the providers are, talking to them, said, well, hey, being a florist, that's the big one right now, something like that,
Yeah, I don't. So the biggest thing from my conversation with Mass Hire in that area was just stating that awareness is a really big challenge. Um, Individuals may not be aware of the multitude of free training opportunities, and they may not be aware of, something brand new like the Job Training Scholarship Fund that we're just getting off the ground with SEC that could apply to many different industries. So it's of course there's certain types of training programs that um, as they've be, as those industries have become a little bit less relevant or less reliable, we've seen less participation in those training programs, but there isn't much indication that the programs that we're offering do not align with what should be funded. There's always room to expand on it, but I think there's a lot of confidence that the smaller numbers that are going through the training programs are getting good results. We just need to get more people enrolled.
Okay, so part of that would be, so it sounds like communicating what we're offering, and I know, I think we talked about this not too long ago on the city increasing its efforts on how they want to go about that. But I would also think that all the different service providers in Somerville have a role here too, in making sure that they're, getting that information out to the people that they're connecting to in their programs. And I think that would probably be one of the key areas that it's almost like it's not a one and done type of thing. It has to be constant, and I haven't seen much, but I necessarily, wouldn't, unless I go looking for it, and I haven't, maybe I should, but to kind of go on some of their websites to take a look, like whether it's the Welcome Project or SEC or the Haitian Coalition, whatever it is, even connection, and I'll ask up at the YMCA, are they making sure the people that are connected to their programs realize what we're offering here? So I think the big thing on that is it's a continuation of efforts. It's constant,
Yeah, I completely agree.
Vicki.
What you said, William, resonates with a lot of the anecdotal information that I'm hearing in the workforce development space. So that was good validation. Thank you for that research. The other thing that I think we should think about is this: there's some pretty big structural changes that you mentioned. A lot of people can no longer afford to live in Somerville, particularly folks from low-income families. And so there just may be a saturation of job training programs given the declining numbers of folks in the region who would be enrolling in the types of jobs training programs that we're going through. It really resonated with me. There has been a drastic plummeting in the number of people enrolling in community colleges because they can't afford it, because they're getting employed, because they're afraid that education and training is not enough to, pay off, to be, worth it. Even if it's free, they still have to spend all their time, and it's an opportunity cost when they're not working. So I do wonder if we might want to consider diversifying the types of things that we invest in, and not solely or mostly continue to invest in job training programs. We may want to look more at helping folks who are in job training programs, other people's job training programs, or in employment access benefits, affordable housing, childcare, food stamps. That's a legitimate thing that we can spend our money on, and it may be a more important need to meet for the low-income residents of Somerville right now. We may also want to think about working with employers of folks from low-income backgrounds and communities, and either training the incumbent workers or figuring out how to support them in these jobs that aren't paying enough wages. So it's sort of like diversifying our portfolio and not putting all of our eggs in the job training basket, and thinking about some of the other needs that we can be meeting in the community that are outside of job training.
Thanks, Vicki. I see some hands up, but I want to see Silvana. Were you about to say something earlier?
No, I'm so sorry for the video because either one of them is also better video than the audio.
Silvana, I can't hear you. You get closer to the mic.
Yes, please. I just
Oh,
wanted to say
now I can hear you.
I took away the video. I chose to have the audio then the video because it seems like it doesn't work both of them. I am here and hearing eye and ears over here. I agree with I didn't have specific things to say, but I want to say that Vicky touched all the primary needs of the family, and that must be a focus for us.
I'm sorry, you said the primary need must be what?
The primary needs that Vicky just mentioned, I agree totally, needs to be our focus, our board focus on these opportunities that we are offering to the specific residents, Somerville or no Somerville residents.
Thanks, Silvana. Since your video is not on, if you click at the top, raise your hand, or just feel free to interject if you want to speak again, since I won't be able to see you raise your hand in the video. Rachel and then Rand.
So one thing that we have going on this year that I think is going to be really interesting to add to this conversation and see where it goes, and we should think about maybe William bringing our colleagues in, Chadi and Regina, at some point when they're a little further in. But we have 2 staff that joined us that are ARPA funded for this year. We are trying to figure out what the future of that looks like after ARPA. But we have 2 folks who've joined our team who are our post-secondary coaches. And their role is to help with our high school graduates making that transition into their next educational game plan, whatever it might be, whether that's job training, apprenticeship, or going on to community college. Big focus is on those who are entering Bunker Hill and our first generation students, and all the supports that they need in terms of just like filling out the FAFSA, figuring out how to have a computer if public schools paid for your computer before, all of those kinds of layers. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that goes, and what the challenges are for that particular age group as they enter the workforce. But I do think that in terms of that diversifying, to Vicky's point, that kind of service and what might be something for the trust to invest in, and also looking at what the experience of those students are in this first year. This is the pilot year, right? That'll give us some really good thoughts, I think, to contribute into next year's programming.
Thanks, Rachel. I just want to remind folks that this was something that we had ranked really highly on our priorities, and then ARPA funding worked out to fund it. So it's great to see the work being done. And then I'm also going to interject to flag and remind, and I'm happy to forward, but there's Success Boston, which has been going on in Boston for 13 plus years. And then there was also a Connection Center pilot that was coaching for young people to support them in enrolling in Bunker Hill or job training programs. And they did, when I was at the Boston Workforce Board, we did a really thorough report reviewing our lessons learned from that time. And so I would encourage the Somerville coaches to learn from a lot of the challenges and opportunities that we experienced when we have been doing really similar work for a while in Boston, and I can forward some of the reports. Thank you, Rand. Chair's discretion here. I'll pass it over to you. And then Vicky, I think I saw you raise your hand.
Just really quickly, am I vocal?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. You know, I'd be really interested in looking at collective strategies to raise wages and improve job quality, as opposed to an individualized approach that we've been talking about here. Not that that's bad, but I think we also could think about how we could use our funds around some collective initiatives. And, you know, obviously, as a union organizer, you know, I think about that as one all-encompassing kind of strategy, a proven strategy that raises wages quite substantially. But, you know, there are other things that we might be looking at with our resources and sort of thinking that through. I'd be, not tonight, but maybe there could be a committee discussion, or, you know, we could look at this in a more comprehensive way sometime. Just leave it there.
Good. Vicky.
Yeah, I would add to that, Rand, also looking at job quality initiatives, which we've been trying to do, but we haven't been super successful as a group. But, you know, maybe we could get a little bit more creative in thinking about that. My initially raised my hand to go off of a comment that Rachel made. Oakland County, Michigan has been experimenting for about a year with what they call community coaches, career coaches. And most of the time when people from low-income backgrounds get access to career coaching, it's because they're attached to a specific program, like the ones that we have funded. So Perscolas or Jumpstart or whatever. There's no like community-wide coaching available to anybody. But Oakland County, Michigan has funded 8 people to be career coaches for mostly people from low-income backgrounds who need access to somebody who can help them do career exploration, explore industries, and explore a variety of different training or education options that might be a good fit for them. This is a nice model because it's unbiased. So most career coaches are attached to a program. Their goal is to try to enroll people in that specific program. When you have community-wide career coaches, they're more open and less biased and can look at a variety of different training options and find the one that might be a really good fit for the individual. It's the only community-wide career coaching model that I've ever seen, and we're just fascinated by it. And they've had about a year's worth of experience with it. So, Rachel, that may be a nice corollary to the post-secondary coaches that you talked about that are serving high school students. Maybe we could do something on the adult side that provides career coaching and advising to adults in Somerville. So just a thought to throw out there, and happy to provide more information. Because my organization has been helped Oakland County, Michigan set up their career coaching. So I'd be happy to provide more information if it's something that the group is interested in.
And Tom.
Thanks. I agree. You know, I think a lot of great things here, but one thing that I think we have to circle back to is what our mission initially is and what the ordinance is. Because the ordinance is specific about job training. And, you know, we have to be careful how far we go off of that. So it's just a word of caution that I'd want to take, look at that to see, again, what the intention was. And, you know, going back to the ask of when this was all brought up to the developers and the businesses in the city was, we're taxing you, you know, for this linkage fee, and which has become more sensitive because they just increased the affordable housing linkage fee, even though all the, the economics of it right now don't make sense to do that. And, there was some really big pushback over that. And there's a lot of people that are upset about it right now, given the city council's decision to go ahead with it, even though basically their own consultant said, maybe you should pause at this point. And so it's kind of interesting to see that happen. So I think we would just have to take a hard look at what it says and what we're doing before we go too far afield one way or the other on it. But I do agree that I think we have to kind of reach out of the box on this to see how we're also going to be pulling in more people. But I also think a more targeted approach, working with the, say, Somerville Housing Authority. I don't think we've done any of that, or any outreach directly to them. And again, a lot of the service providers provide services there, and I'm almost thinking like, could the city with us create almost like a education fair? We go there to talk about, what we're doing, so that we can get residents kind of, engaged in to take these programs and run with them. I know when I was a commissioner there, we ran programs out of their community center up at Mystic, and we usually, if we were running some kind of training program, or one of the things that was big at the time was finances and things like that, housing, home ownership, things like that. And they were very well attended. But we had the help of the housing authority, but we also had the help of the different service providers. Kind of was a coordinated effort to get people involved. And maybe we need to start looking. Maybe we need to be more active in trying to do that, because again, the ordinance also says Somerville residents, right? So how do we figure out, how do we get these residents kind of excited and involved in the programs?
Okay, I know Rachel and Vicky both have it's numbered. Wow, teams, look at that. Rachel, Vicky, and then I have a comment.
Yeah, I like where Tom is going. I think in terms of pulling the providers together and saying we want to create an opportunity where everybody can do advertising jointly. I think it also gives the applicant, like the folks who might want to go through these trainings, the opportunity to sort of do that at career exploration, right? And let's see, like, okay, there's IT opportunities, there's the life science track, like all these different tracks that they could go, and they can sort of look at the different options and say, okay, maybe I'm interested in this. And it might be sort of hitting that career exploration idea at the same time as doing that targeted outreach and advertising. The other thought I had, and this is sort of a broad, again, thinking about that like broader perspective, and Tom, I've heard you say this multiple times, which is why it's stuck in my head, is to work with the incoming companies and try and figure out what exact needs they have and try and see if we can create programs that are more specifically targeted to them. And so every time we have a chance to talk with the developers or the companies that are coming, we are pitching that. I'm pitching that to them, say, let's have a conversation. Let's really talk about what your workforce needs are for those folks who do not need a college degree or that PhD, if it's the life sciences. And what are those jobs? How do we get folks to you? What can we build for you that gets those jobs filled by local folks? Because that solves a lot of problems for everybody. So no one's taken me up on it yet, but I'm hoping that one day soon we can start building these links.
Vicky.
All right, hold on one sec. Okay, there we go. I'm on mic. So I'm going to have to disagree with Tom Bent. When you go back and look at the ordinance, it actually does not focus just on job training. It actually says, the purpose of the trust is to help with the creation and maintenance for employment of Somerville residents. I realize that a lot of the marketing around passing the bill focused on job training, but the ordinance is actually much broader. So, and it's traditional for people to think about job training because that's what we've been thinking about for decades. And it's an easy place to fall back on. But I really like the fact that our ordinance is broad enough for us to really be able to respond to the needs of the market. And if that's not just job training, I really think we should be innovative and forward thinking and consider some other ways of helping the residents of Somerville who need our help and assistance and this money to be used well.
Thanks, Vicki. I was actually going to raise the same point as well, where I was checking the ordinance, and we'll add that the second piece says, and providing training and services that will enable residents to access job opportunities that will permit them to succeed and maintain adequate income so they can continue living in the city of Somerville. So job training, I agree, is certainly one powerful angle for supporting people on a pathway to sustaining employment. And I also think that the ordinance does permit a lot of the things we've been talking about. I see, Colleen, that you've raised your hand. I want, as a facilitative measure, to highlight that later on in the same agenda item, or the same agenda, we have an item for talking about recruitment strategies. And so a few folks here have touched on some recruitment ideas, and I think we can bring those. I'm sure those are in the notes, and then we'll also have an opportunity in a couple of minutes to delve deeper into recruitment. And then I would also say that part of this fact finding and research that William is doing is to contextualize us. So as we move into fall and thinking about our prioritization, we can continue to have a lot of the rich conversations that we're having today. So I think we all know this isn't going to end in like one decision, right? Because we've created our investment priorities that William's about to refresh us on where these are. And we'll go into fall ranking a new set of investment priorities. And I think folks are bringing up a lot of worthwhile things to think about and discuss. So I just wanted to contextualize our conversation within our full process. And with that, invite Colleen to speak.
Thanks. I just think the ideas are incredible that are coming out of this conversation. I'm just really fascinated by it all. And there's so many opportunities that for what we can do. And I liked Tom's idea with the sort of, and that Rachel was talking about with the like sharing all the plethora, like the big table of ideas that are available out there so people can really make informed choices about what they want to do. So if we're working with a smaller group of people who are looking, who are the pool because of all the economic factors of living in the cities, then, having them make a good choice for themselves is going to be a big difference for their long-term satisfaction and success. I also loved Rand's idea of, getting the like sort of a working group together to kind of weight and measure all these different kinds of things and, which direction makes sense, because I think the findings from the research that William did really show that, the whole, tectonic plates are on the move and things are changing. And so we want to be relevant. So I just wanted to express support for that, but it's been such a fascinating conversation.
I'd be down to be on a committee. Maybe it's just a committee of one. I'll come back with recommendations. Okay, no more committees.
No, I was muted. I was trying to speak, Rand. I just thrown off my Teams, and I'm a little embarrassed about it. Was this a formal proposal of a committee of exploration here? Or are we throwing around ideas, or is it both?
I think getting a group together informally of members of the trust to sort of bat around some ideas, think about some approaches in a more casual way, and then come back at the next meeting, or come back in the September meeting with some ideas to put in front of the whole group.
So
that's a proposal.
Okay, Rachel and then Silvana. Or no, wait, what's happening? Rachel, Silvana, Vicki.
The numbering is helpful.
It is.
Yeah, love it.
So one thought I had, and I'd be curious about other members' thoughts on this, is that I think the information William put together could be very useful for contextualizing the conversation at our annual meeting in October. Just to sort of lay out this moment of rethinking. And And so help people really understand, what we have, not just what have we funded and how many folks have joined those programs, but also what's going on in the broader picture. I do think it's just such good information. It might help then if we're, but why I wanted to bring this back to now is like with what Rand was just saying is that like having a group come back in September, if the annual meeting is in October, being able to sort of say like, here's the context, here's the conversation that the subcommittee has been having. This is where we've landed, sort of be able to pull all those strings together and help those who join us only once a year for the annual meeting to understand where we're at.
Thanks, Rachel. Silvana, then Vicky.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
I'm a little bit confused now. I just want to say thank you to everybody. It's been like a conversation that is like a bouquet of flowers. Everyone brings different color and different point of views. It's important, and we already know the primary focus of this board. And what is important is to know, beside the employment, all the obstacles that there are there to get this opportunity. Like Vicky mentioned, childcare, transportation, DTA for these families that wants to catch these opportunities, these family members, but there is a tight frame on them with these kind of obstacles that for them are big, like the child care, the transportation, and even have like a primary income, a small income that will be helpful from the DPA or even coverage of health insurance would probably will help them. So if we get stayers to understand and help them on this obstacle, I think we already have the highest point, and join with Rand that we really need a group to bring this in the best and the first meaning of all of these, like to bring them at the top of the list, understand and how we can help, cooperate even with other organization or other foundation that help on this kind. We probably have a future, a very bright future for this opportunity to catch up by the people that really deserve and really need. So if you want another one in the committee, I agree. I will join Rand too.
Thanks, Silvana. Vicky?
Yeah, just a process note. I do think it's important for us to keep in mind that we will be coming up to this reprioritization process if we decide to keep that process for the fall. And we have such limited time, and I don't want to burn out committee members. I wonder if it makes more, rather than doing a subcommittee and having a subcommittee come back with ideas, if it makes more sense to have a like an intentional sort of facilitated discussion with the whole group around these ideas as part of that reprioritization. So for example, it would be really, it could be really interesting to frame the conversation around the very good points that William provided for context. That this was a barrier, this was a barrier, this was a barrier. And we could brainstorm as a group, what would the solutions look like to that challenge? And then use that as a stepping stone towards our reprioritization. And, I agree with Rachel that the context would be great for the October meeting. And then we could describe how we really tried to think about as a group what would be the solutions to those specific challenges that came up in the research, and propose a draft set of priorities like we have in the past.
Yeah, I'll jump in and say that I think if we're speaking broadly about ideas and solutions, I think meeting as a full group and folks coming with their ideas and having a targeted, well, maybe not targeted, a thoughtful conversation about this, I think is good. I think if there's like specific issues that folks want to delve into and we think we'll need a lot of background information for board members to be able to understand, that's, I think, where a really good space for a subcommittee is. Rachel.
I was just realizing one other piece we should add into this background conversation, William. And I think, William, we can pull this from the staff side, is that what ARPA is funding for this year.
Oh, that would be really helpful.
Because so many organizations, so many of our nonprofit partners got funding through the ARPA nonprofit round, that could contribute to this picture, right? Like there's a strong priority on, programs that are trying to address the wage gap between the gender wage gap. And there's a lot of focus that is going to be coming on about, supporting small businesses. And there's just, what are those ARPA programs that the city is specifically funding? Because those are also organizations I'm realizing that may not be in a position capacity wise to take on something new if they already have gotten their funded for this year.
That's helpful context, Rachel. Vicki?
Sorry, one last thought. During the pandemic, I was very much bullheaded about making sure that we spent as much money as we were getting in, because we had such an economic crisis ahead of us, and people were really hurting. However, given the flood of funding post-pandemic with ARPA, and then we saw the state dump all that money around childcare into the system, which prevented us from getting any applicants for our own childcare initiative. One thing we may consider is holding on to some funds to be available for future, i.e. post-ARPA needs. Because as you said, Rachel, that ARPA funding isn't going to last forever. I mean, it does expire in like a year or something. And it would be nice to be able to have 1 year. It'd be nice to be able to have some follow-on funding from some source. I'm thinking about, the big system here, to be able to support those providers and those programs that survived under ARPA, but now that money's gone. And that's where Jobs Trust funding could potentially come in. So that's a thought too.
Yeah, I think these are, Tom, there you go.
Yeah, both ideas, Vicki, that you had, I agree with. I think bringing everybody together instead of having a committee makes a lot more sense. I would advocate that it's an in-person meeting too. I think we get more out of it that way. Okay. It was funny, the MPO that I'm on finally had our first in-person meeting the last month, and it was good. I think other than people seeing everyone, it was a lot more interactive than some of the Zoom meetings that we've had in the past. So I think that's great. And then I was thinking on the same line as, on the funding, because what we may also see is a drop in funding going into next year, because I'm seeing it on the construction end. Projects are on hold. The buildings that are being built now, the lab buildings, have 0 tenants going into them. 0. Okay, it's a big concern. I had a long discussion with Tom Galligani about it the other day. The city's concerned about it also. We have two, three, 4, 5 lab buildings all coming online, and none of them have tenants right now. So that's a real issue. So later on, we may be looking for that funding later on. So I would definitely agree that we may want to put some in the bank for now and see what happens.
That's really interesting.
Rachel.
Great opportunity for affordable housing in those empty office buildings.
Yes.
Lab buildings aren't great for affordable housing, but office buildings, I agree, but lab buildings are tough. All their infrastructure is designed for labs. They're not designed for housing.
You get a nice bathroom.
Not
all
really.
Bathroom. Rachel.
Not unless you want a Bunsen burner in there or something, right?
Yeah, I did just want to note on the in-person front, I will follow up and ask, but as of right now, we're still sort of waiting on bigger picture strategies about getting regular board meetings back in person. Because this might be a special meeting, we might be able to do it, but because not all boards are sort of ready yet to go back to in-person or hybrid, we're trying to sort out like what the bigger picture looks like. Again, if this is more of a we need to do this as an in-person workshop kind of thing, there might be more, that might be something that's doable. We're trying to make sure that all of the boards are sort of in the same place when they all come back to whatever the next iteration looks like.
Rachel, is that a
Yeah.
city thing, or because it's not on the statewide? I know that.
It's a citywide thing. We don't have, it's the systems. We're trying to get everybody trained. All of the staff that have to manage a board and commission all have to be trained on the hybrid systems. We've got to find spaces that everybody can meet in. And since we're not quite there yet for all boards to move at the same moment, we're trying to figure out what the game plan looks like. But for special meetings, this might be something that we might be able to work on just because it's a specific workshop format kind of thing.
Okay, let's come back to
Yeah,
this. At
I
the
would say
end.
special meeting for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's revisit this when we do our scheduling at the end. For now, appreciate this rich and robust conversation, folks, and would like to move us on to our next agenda item of reviewing the current status of the 22-23 investment priorities.
Thanks, Annika. I'm going to pull that up on my screen. All right, so up here on the screen, I'm showing the continued progress on the investment priorities that the trust has made over the past year based on the priorities set during the fall. We've discussed a couple of them already, but want to call out just once more the post-secondary supports programming. We're currently having this funded by ARPA. We have 2 coaches that have full caseloads that they're working with, recent graduates, helping them determine what their next steps are. Many of them are getting ready for college in the fall, but others are still kind of determining what the next steps are. So wanted to mention that. To priority number 2, we have set aside those funds, so that's something we don't have to discuss for a long time until fiscal year 28. Priority 3, just to kind of give an overview, we are currently funding 5 organizations that are providing the industry-specific training. 2 of these organizations, Just to Start and AACA, have no-cost extensions. That's continuing their work. We also have Perscolis that has expressed interest in a no-cost extension beyond their end date of September 30th. So this will be on a later agenda. And then we also have the Mass Cultivate Ed training, the Franklin Cummings Tech training that are both on this list and currently available. I actually just got great marketing materials from Franklin Cummings Tech. I asked them to specifically say Somerville Job Creation and Retention Trust on the flyers, so I will send those out to the group after this. Just as a reminder, that's for their clean energy and IT programs. For continuing down the list, priority 4, the trust obligated $400,000 to the Good Municipal Jobs training program. For priority number 5, the ARPA funds and the scale grant of the trust are addressing digital literacy and training resources. Priority number 7, we will be discussing some updates, or sorry, priority number 6, we will be discussing some updates from the mental health subcommittee later on, where funding has not yet been obligated. To take us through the rest of the current active funded programs under the currently obligated funds in relation to the previous year's priorities. funds are available for SEC's Job Training Scholarship Fund. Funds are also available for the Professional Development Fund for adult education teachers and workforce development professionals. We are also continuing disbursement on the contextualized ESOL and contextualized ESOL for adults and English language learners. Scale at the last meeting was granted a no-cost extension through December to continue their programming. And then we have the Bunker Hill grant, which is concluding this fall as they wrap up their third year at the Somerville English Language Learners program. So that was a mouthful, but that's to show kind of what is active. And you know, this can be, it's good that we come back to this list regularly, but I think it'll be good to think about what's on this list and then what's missing as we look ahead to figuring out priorities for the coming year.
Thanks, William. Does anyone have any clarifying questions about the investment priorities that William just listed? Okay, seeing none. Our next agenda item is discussion of recruitment strategies for job training programs. Some ideas were already surfaced earlier in the meeting around collaboration with nonprofits such as Welcome Center and YMCA, and sort of more system-wide collaboration. And then William, you want to share some of the work that, or share the work that you've been doing and ideas that you wanted to share with the board?
Yeah, I'll share just a couple ideas that I've been working on and then happy to take some more ideas. Some of them are related to what Tom Bent was mentioning earlier as well. That, you know, my focus is to work on these truly ongoing efforts to reestablish the referrals and relationships between the members of the ecosystem. We just had at the beginning of July a new person come on as the interim director at Scale. So this is another opportunity to reintroduce partners, get them working together, and then encouraging all funded programs to regularly share their recruitment flyers with me is something I'm going to be more intentional about. It's challenging sometimes not knowing, you know, how many seats are available or what's the next date that someone might be able to apply for a program. That's information we should have at our fingertips. With the example that I mentioned before, I'm encouraging our providers to include Somerville and JCRT specific language on their recruitment flyers to elevate these funding sources in particular. I also wanted to mention that Somerville Housing Authority, so we have done some connections work with them. They've been a strong referral partner for Asian American Civic Association. So it's continuing to make sure that places that are strong referral partners have awareness of the breadth of programming that we are funding. Some other avenues for recruitment. I spoke today with the Somerville Office of Housing Stability. They work with individuals who are facing eviction, having challenges. Sorry, I just wanted to see the chat. Is the sound going okay so far?
Yeah,
Okay,
the
great.
sound is great. Vicky was
Okay.
sharing something for Somerville practitioners and grantees, a potential resource.
Wonderful. Yeah, so I was speaking with the Somerville Office of Housing Stability today, talking about how we can make sure that individuals that are at risk of losing their housing in Somerville, having trouble paying for rent, have awareness about these types of programs that we're funding. Something to keep in mind, going back to what we were discussing earlier, is that right now we are relying on, the city is relying on Somerville Community Corporation as kind of a hub organization to help individuals identify training opportunities, because we don't have career coaches in-house on the city staff aside from the post-secondary coaches. So it's something to think about whether added capacity could be of value in the roles of helping individuals identify programs of good fit. And other recruitment ideas I have include actually, when meeting with the new interim director at Scale, she mentioned Somerville Family Learning Collaborative as a group that works with parents of SPS students, maybe a good recruitment channel. And then lastly, trying to share these opportunities regularly with the city councilors that can help, get these opportunities shared across the city. So those are some ideas, but I've written down all the recruitment ideas I've heard earlier, but I invite anyone that has ideas they want to share now or just in general to email me if if you ever have a suggestion of are we sending flyers to this group, or can you include this person next time you send them out? So I'll open it up for ideas that people want to share in the moment.
Tom.
Thank you. Vicky, Annika, through you to William, I like, all the things that you brought up. I know the city's running a lot of different programs, especially, targeting affordable housing. And I am assuming that you're bringing in more and more people to help educate them on how to go into the lottery and all the other things that they're doing. So it's like coordinating the effort of all the different services that the city, can bring to people, including us, right? And this has been a problem that the city's had for a long time. Trying to, it's like there's a lot of services being, and this goes out to the providers too. The nonprofit providers out there, the community. There's like no hub, where somebody can go to find out, hey, what is available across the board, whether it's for kids, teens, 20 something, adults, seniors. And that's been a long standing problem in the city. So I think, with some of the ideas that you had there, I think to me, there's was kind of percolating, maybe there's a way to do that. And I wouldn't have any, if funding was needed for some of that, I wouldn't have a problem, with funding from the trust to go towards something like that, because if we can make sure that people are aware of the programs, then, hopefully they'll come, right? So that's kind of a lot of the things that you talked about were great. And then, but it's like pulling them all together. And the second thing on the housing authority, I'd love to know what the numbers are on that they were getting out of that area. And maybe for us, with the service providers, if they know, especially if they're coming from like the Somerville Housing Authority, or they heard it from us from SEC or wherever, it would be kind of good to have that kind of info, so that we can say, hey, this is where we may want to target more efforts or whatever. But just some thoughts. But I thought all those were great.
Thanks, Tom. Anyone else have any thoughts or suggestions to share? Okay. Thank you, William, for your creativity and thoughtfulness about this. And board members, if, as William invited, if you have additional thoughts outside of our meetings, I encourage you to reach out to William and suggest the connections or potential avenues for getting the message out about the programs that we're funding. And then I think we're gonna shift to our last main topic here. The topic afterwards being reviewing upcoming meeting schedule. Our last main topic here is update from the mental health training subcommittee. I think I'll kick us off here, and then Colleen and Silvana, please join in. So we appreciated all of the feedback that we got from the board in our last meeting. We met as a subcommittee between then and now and delved back into the RFP and made some language suggestions to make it more clear that the participants of this funding will be workforce development professionals, that will be specifically staff who are working with job seekers in lieu of, or in context of pandemic heightening burnout, turnover, and recruitment challenges for the organizations, which are impacting their ability to support the Somerville resident job seekers that we're working with. So I think we added a lot of clarity around that. William, can you remind me, did this go out to the board, or were we going to do a screen share here?
I can screen share. I just sent it to the subcommittee, but let me pull it up.
Okay, cool. And Colleen and Silvana, do you have other? That was the main highlight that I remembered that we incorporated. Oh, and then our other piece that I just recalled is we made it more clear that this was going to go towards organizations that the JCRT is funding and Somerville-based training workforce development organizations. Let's see. Is this like Zoom where you can zoom in? Yeah, it is. I can zoom it in. Alrighty. But yeah, Colleen and Silvana, were there other reflections that we had that we tried to incorporate that you wanted to touch on?
I think you touched on that, but it was, people can be either people that we're supporting or people that are in Somerville. It didn't have to be just specifically supported by the JCRT organizations. And just to clarify too, it's like not the train the trainer model. This is about training the folks who work at these organizations and helping them then be better prepared to help others.
Thanks, Colleen.
Yeah, just to expand on that point that Colleen was making, that we've talked a bit about train the trainer language last time when we were meeting, and after thinking about it a little bit more, we felt that train the trainer applies more to individuals that are learning skills that they are then facilitating to another group, kind of facilitating the same curriculum. So with this case, we're not looking for the providers we work with to then facilitate the same curriculum to their job seeker participants, rather more to take the learnings that they have into the work that they do with the participants. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thanks, William. I think the text here is the meat of the description of what this funding is. And so I would love if board members, as you're reading through, have thoughts or questions.
Oh, and I'm realizing that I have some footnotes that are not showing up on this version, but I'll send this out to everyone afterwards in a version that has the sources.
Thanks. Thanks, William.
Great.
Just for the subcommittee, the only other thing I was thinking maybe we could discuss here was just the conversation we had around the timeline for this release. So I'm
Oh,
happy to
yep.
talk about that, or if one of you wants to jump in to share more about that.
Thanks for that reminder. Woo! Oh my goodness. Sorry, folks. I thought that was on mute. Thanks for that reminder, William. Would you care to take? Could you take the timeline?
Sure.
Thank you.
So we talked about the fact that the organization we contract to provide this type of training probably doesn't have maybe the same constraints that our providers have right now in terms of time, in terms of staffing challenges. That being said, because it is currently the summer months, we're in between school years, we had discussed the potential for releasing this RFP later in the fall with the idea that the training would then be happening starting in the new year, starting in 2024. So just to say, we understand this is a need, but we want to give a little bit more lead time, especially so that we can ensure that the workforce development professionals that we want to benefit from this are ready and have their feet under them so that they can set aside some time to do this training.
Thanks, William. I just got a note that says this is going to end in 5 minutes. Will it actually end in 5 minutes? I mean, I think we're moving towards the end of our meeting, but I did just want to.
No, I think it just, I think it's not going to cut us off.
Okay, thank you, William. Okay, so we will need to vote to obligate this funding at a future meeting. But again, does anyone have any, I guess, questions or comments looking at this? Rachel.
Just a thought relative to the discussion we were having earlier. I would be curious about the other members' thoughts on should this be expanded to include our nonprofits, our Somerville nonprofits that provide affordable housing as well. Like if this is really about making sure that the staff feel like they have the supports they need to continue in their employment at these nonprofits and that they aren't themselves burning out. I see the nonprofits that do our affordable housing work having a similar challenge.
Makes sense.
Thanks, Rachel. Hearing some nods. Vicki.
William, I appreciate the information on the timeline and the sensitivity to ensuring that the workforce development practitioners who will be participating in this training have plenty of lead time. We may want to be able to announce the training like up to 2 months before the first training actually happens. Because I've noticed any participation in any sort of training, like capacity building and professional development training by workforce development practitioners today in 2023, they actually need about 2 months lead time in order to get it on their calendar and hold the time. So you may think kind of back up from there in terms of when you release the RFP. If you have to have everything settled 2 months before you even announce it or if you want everything settled 2 months before you want people to actually enroll in the training. And I just also wanted to acknowledge Tom Bent's story from last time about the employee that you had that was struggling with a mental health challenge. And just wanted to thank you for taking care of him and making sure that he got access to some resources, and just wanted to see how he's doing.
Yeah, he's actually back to work and he's doing pretty well. But he's continuing with some counseling. So
Oh, thank goodness.
Yep.
Thank you.
And with that, it was all about kind of spotting some warning signs. And I was going to just say, to the idea about opening it up again. It's not a field that I've been educated in. Over the years, you kind of learn a lot of this stuff, but even if we thought it was valuable enough that even city city staff that's working with the public and working with, especially with again, they've ramped up the affordable housing work that the city's done. Again, I think that'd be a great place to do it, while you're also on top of piggybacking, encouraging people to get into the jobs trust end. And then later on, I could see maybe something like this expanding. You know how we try to do a small employer HR program that we were never able to kind of get going.
Hey,
But
William, could you pull your share down?
maybe something that would be an assistance to small business employers on helping, with identifying employees that might be struggling. Just a thought.
I appreciate that, Tom. Thank you.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Okay. But I think what I'm hearing from the group is that sort of the big picture description makes sense, and folks are suggesting potential other avenues or potential other audiences of participants for this that we could include in our scope that we're putting on here. Okay, that sounds great. So then, William, maybe what we'll do is, if you want to put some of those edits in the RFP and send it to the subcommittee again, we can do that offline, or I guess we'll be online, but off the meeting. And then we would put the obligation vote up for our next meeting. And then I think also via email, we can touch base about thinking about the timeline, which I think that still works out, but I think it's just good for us to look at that. Okay. Okay, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for this conversation, this thoughtful conversation. Our upcoming meeting schedule. We would have another meeting on August 2nd. And our September 6th meeting, we had moved to September 13th because a lot of people, including myself, are out of town on the 6th. So I guess I would like to formally request that the September 13th meeting can be a board in-person workshop for us to meet for the first time in 3 years and also delve into the research that William has shared and do some moving around brainstorming around solutions. I think I would agree with Tom and some others that I've heard here. I think in person for that type of like creative brainstorming can be so valuable. So I would like to request that from Rachel, if that could pass along to whatever happens next. I think that would be really, really helpful. And then I am also interested in seeing if folks would consider not meeting in August, having a little summer break. Vicki, was that what your hand raise was about? Okay, I'm seeing a thumbs up.
All for summer break. On the September 13th meeting, I'll actually be in Maryland that evening.
No.
But if we could, I'm happy to come in by phone, and I'm aggressive enough that I can participate by phone in a special workshop, no problem. But just wanted to see if we could make that a hybrid, because I will be presenting at the Maryland Workforce Development Association conference that day.
Thanks, Vicki. Rachel.
I was gonna say we can work on figuring out, between William and I, we can figure out what the hybrid situation looks like. The first test of it was a little messy, which is part of why it's been we got to take our time, get everybody trained up, but hopefully by September we can get there.
Can everyone else make the September 13th meeting if we do it in person?
I
think
can't.
Colleen nod.
Sorry.
Yep.
Can or cannot, Silvana?
I cannot. I'm sorry.
Okay. Can you attend that date or just not in person?
Not in person. I have a event on my family.
Okay, but you,
are-
could you join virtually?
yeah, I'll try virtually. Yeah.
Okay, just trying to get a sense of the head count. And then Tom, you had said yes? Did I hear you? Okay. Okay, and then Rand, I saw you said yes too. Is it chaotic to look at the 20th?
20th would work for me.
The 20th work for anyone else?
I don't have a clue what's the 20th now.
It's a Wednesday.
It's
Looks
a-
good.
Okay.
So far, so good.
That works for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm all set on that day.
Okay. Rand Rand and Rachel.
I have a redevelopment authority meeting simultaneous, but I can probably split my attention and be with you guys for at least part of it.
Rand?
September 13th?
20th. I was checking on the 20th.
Oh, 20th is, okay.
Okay. So then I actually might propose we move this to the 20th. If it sounds like folks have fewer conflicts or more folks
Yeah.
have fewer conflicts.
Thank you,
Okay.
Annika.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you. All right. So then William, if you could bump our calendar hold to the 20th. And I think unanimous support for not having a meeting on August 2nd. So I think if you could pull that August 2nd one off our calendar, then we'll be in a good spot. Okay. Are there any additional items that have not been reasonably anticipated by the chairs?
I have just one quick thing I wanted to ask Vicki about, which you mentioned she's presenting at a workforce development conference. What about some board education? And this board going to, because I know in Massachusetts there's workforce development and I know, again, when I was at the Housing Authority and now at the MPO, some of the best ideas we got were from different conferences where we were meeting with other like partners, especially at the Housing Authority. Some of the new buildings that were built here that we were always told we couldn't do. Chicago Housing Authority was a great help to kind of think out of the box. So just a thought. I don't want to get into a big discussion tonight. I know it's late, but I know, and Vicki, you're the expert in this, so if you could think about that, if you thought there'd be something that would be beneficial to the board, I'd love to go to something like that.
Oh, group trip to Horizons in NOLA, sponsored by Jobs for the Future. Yeah, I was actually thinking I might have promised in the past, but I should double down on this, is putting together a list of the conferences that at least that the practitioners in Somerville should be made aware of. But you're right, it would be helpful for the board to consider as well. And if there's something that is offered kind of locally or regionally, it would be very easy for us to attend. Yeah, I'll put that together.
Great, thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Vicki. And with that, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
I hear a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
We've got a second from Silvana. Okay. In favor of adjourning, Thomas Ben,
Yes.
Vicki,
Yes.
Silvana,
Yes.
Colleen,
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Suspenseful Rachel. Annika, yes. Rand.
Yes.
All right. And with that, the meeting is adjourned at 7:38 p.m. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a good rest of your evenings.
Have a
You-
great summer.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good summer, everyone.
Happy summer.
Cool.
Stay cool.
Oh.